It was the month of Kartikai, the Ekadasi which falls before the most celebrated Vaikunta Ekadasi, the Kartikai Ekadasi, Suklapaksha Ekadasi. As it was the tradition, Nambaduvan woke up early in the morning, did all his traditional ablutions and applying Thirumankappu, wearing his Tulasi Dalam and praying to Mahavishnu, continuing his fast, taking the Sankalpam. Everything went on till middle of the night, early night. Late in the evening, after taking his evening ablutions, carrying his Veena and Talam, he started singing the praise as he left his residential quarters and took up on his long journey towards this beautiful town called Thirukkurungudi. As he was nearing it, he had to cross through several forests. And one of those forests, he was never worried about the darkness, or he didn't feel bad about it at all, because he had Mahavishnu in him. What could anyways make him feel troubled? As he was walking, quite unusually that night, suddenly he heard a loud roaring noise. Suddenly he heard noises that looked like the entire Mahendragiri Parvatam was bursting out. Suddenly he heard a noise like it was lightning and thunder. And before he could realize what it was, standing in front of him was a gory looking ghost, a Brahma Rakshasa, who the moment he saw him started chasing him. Not fearing for his life, but fearing for his Ekadasi Vratam to be completed, Nambaduvan took to his heels and he started running too. After a point of time, not knowing what was happening, Nambaduvan requested the Brahma Rakshasa to take it slow. And he said, "May I please request you, why are you chasing me? Do we have anything unsettled from the past? What is it that's going on between us? I'm seeing you for the first time. And this form of yours is quite threatening. And may you please rest for a moment and explain to me, why are you chasing me?" The Brahma Rakshasa once again laughed out loud. And he said, "I don't have a reason as to why I'm chasing you, but for my hunger. It has been quite some time since I found somebody who could serve me as my dinner. And after many, many months of hunger, I've seen you today. Now come over and serve me yourself as my dinner for tonight." And that's when Nambaduvan said, please be patient. Just wait for a moment. I am Nambaduvan. I've taken up this Ekadasi Vratam. Just wait for some time. I'm on my way to complete my Vratam after the darshan of Perumal. By early tomorrow morning, I'll reach here to this very spot and offer myself. Now that I have observed Vratam since last night, I'm skinny and bony, nothing much for you to enjoy over my flesh. So give me this opportunity to go there, get done with the Vratam, and I'll come back to you all bright. And you can sumptuously take me. And that is when the Brahma Rakshasa laughed out even more louder and he said, has there ever been in history that somebody escapes the clutch of a Brahma Rakshasa like me and promises to come back and they actually kept up the promise? That can never be the case. Now you are not going to come back, don't fool around with me. I have been hungry all along, so come over and serve me as my sumptuous meal for the night. Nambaduvan once again said, "Let me make a promise." And Brahma Rakshasa intervened right there. He said, "Satyam, in this world, that has never been the case. What value has promise got? Do you people, common mortals, keep up promises?" Nambaduvan said, "Well, your doubts are very, very valid. Even as Kali is just approaching, I can see how the concept of Satyam is not being upheld anymore. Kali has not even happened, it is still approaching, and by then it is this. I can understand your worries, but let me tell you, there are still people who respect Satyam. It is because of such people that the sun rises in the early morning and sets during the evening. It is because of those people that it actually rains, and because of those people that agricultural fields are still growing up. So please believe in my promise. I'll not give up. I'll not fool you around. I'll just be back after finishing my Ekadasi Vratam." The Nambaduvan's plea didn't really make sense to the Brahma Rakshasa. He said, like, nothing doing. Come over. Now that you're caught, there is no way to escape. A cow that was caught by a tiger may cry and plead and promise to come back after serving its milk to its calves, but that's not going to happen. A rat that was caught by a cat will never come back if left once. I know you will also escape me, so I'm not going to take a chance. And he starts chasing him again. Now Nambaduvan again on his heels, climbs up the hills and falls down and through meadows, and they run through the jungles. And now Brahma Rakshasa chased him and caught him at some point. Now Nambaduvan goes on to make 18 promises, a list of promises, all quoted from the Dharma Shastras. He says, if I don't come back as promised, may I get the sin of somebody who does this. And the list goes on. 18 such promises. It's a long conversation, listening to which we get a lot of clues about what Dharmashastras teaches us about as values and morals. The first promise he makes is, Satyam Bhutahitam Proksham. He says, once somebody makes a promise and misses the promise, goes over it, a lot of sins follow him. May I be sinned at that level. That I have made a promise, and if I don't uphold it, when a promise is not upheld, there are always sins that follows you. When your words, this is exactly why Acharyas always suggest get into Maunam. That's the easiest way to escape the wrath of Kali. Because once you say something, it should make sense. It should be the truth. It should not hurt somebody there. If it can be censored, if it can be screened off, if it is of no use to somebody, if it is going to hurt somebody, if it is not the truth, you may always reserve from uttering it. So any word spoken is considered to be promise. You needn't actually declare something as a promise. When you speak something, it has got to be only Satyam. So he says, when people sin at that level, they are troubled. They are in for trouble. May I be sinned at that level. That's when Brahmarakshasa says, not done. When somebody is doing, I see a lot of people doing it. Most of you people do it. Your own creed is doing it. So I'm not going to believe this. And he says, the next promise he makes is, when somebody is engulfed by lust or desire, knowing very well that it is going to last only for a few moments, and in the mindset which is taken over by lust and desire, when they commit sins even mentally, that is taken up as serious offense by Dharmashastras. For a moment, if they think like, may this fellow just fall down now, he might escape it. What they thought might not be very serious. For a moment, they would have thought. That is considered as extreme sin, that which is done manasikama. When you just even think something bad for somebody, that's a great sin. May I be the recipient of a sin of that sort if I don't come back. Brahmarakshasa was not convinced. He said manasika papam is something that all of you all do. I'm not going to get into it at all. No, I'm not doing it. The third is, he says, when you invite guests and treat them at different levels. When you have two people who are visiting you, two different guests, through whom you have something else to happen, so you treat them better off. And the other probably is in need of you, so you treat them in a different way. Paguti Bhojanamnu solluvanga. When it is a feast, when you have people seated there, and if you're going to treat somebody whom you want in a different way, and somebody whom you don't like in a different way, nothing like it. When atithis are treated in different ways, that's a great sin. May I be a recipient of that sin. Brahmarakshasa says, if somebody does that, may he get that sin. You have not done that, I'm not for it. So this is not a word from you, because you have not sinned at that level at all. I know you are a well-groomed person. You will never do that. I'm not going to believe this promise. The fourth promise that he made was, when somebody promises a bhudanam to somebody. When a wealthy person says, come over tomorrow, I'll gift you my land. So this person goes there. In front of a huge audience, he actually promises and performs a bhudanam. The next day when he says, can I take up that land parcel that you've gifted me? He says, come on, what is this? I just gave it as an act of charity for other people to appreciate me. How do you even think that I'm actually going to part with my land? So no, I'm not going to give this. Go back. Bhumiya tarenu sollitu, illa mudiyadu ponu sonnanna, and edathile there is a sin that he is going to earn. May I be given that sin. This also the Brahmarakshasa is not for it. You don't have interest in land and wealth and prosperity. So this sin does not really make sense to me. I'm not accepting this promise. And next in list was, the fifth promise, he said, when somebody is married to a young girl, takes care of her in her young days, and as she grows old, when he cannot really take care of her, gives up on somebody. When he gives up, quite literally, a husband, when he gives up on his wife because she is now aged and she is not able to serve him, and it cannot happen the other way, varumbodu oruthan avanude manaviye vittutanna, he is a great sinner. May I be sinned at that level if I don't come back to you as promised. The sixth in list is, for somebody who has rightfully performed the Amavasya Tarpanam, to satisfy the needs of all his ancestors, and that day, if he gives up on his vratam and goes to sleep with his wife, that is a huge sin. That is when he earns all the curses of his own ancestors on an Amavasya day. To actually get into Dampatyam is a sin. May I endure the sins of somebody who has done that. Brahmarakshasa says, I know the way you treat yourself, a celibate. So this sin again does not make sense to me. I'm not acknowledging this. So better fall at my feet right now for me to eat you. The next in list was to abuse somebody who has actually fed you when you were hungry. When somebody is hungry, the immediate response from somebody who can afford to feed him is to feed him. Bare minimum, at least share what you've got for yourself. One day if you eat a couple of morsels less, you're not going to die. So share with what minimum you can at least. Even if that is not there, give him or her at least a cup of water. This is what the Dharma Shastra says. For somebody to feel hungry in front of you, even to watch it is a sin. May I get that sin? That was also not accepted. The eighth in list was to promise somebody that you will give your daughter in wedlock to him and then denying it for whatever reasons. Kanyadhanam pannitharenu satyam pannittu, when you deny it, that is a big time sin. May I be sinned at that level. The next in list is on the Sashti, Ashtami, Chaturdasi and Amavasya Tithi, if somebody forces to eat without taking a bath, he or she is sinned. May I get that sin? He says, I know you for your austerities. I've been following you for quite a few Ekadasi nights now. You have not skipped even one Vratam day. I'm sure you are so particular about your Anushtanams, so you're not going to sin at that level. So I'm not believing that also. The next was, more cruel is a sin when somebody promises a gift or a charity or some money or gold for somebody in need and later reserves from doing it. Hurting somebody by promising them something and then reserving from it, that's a big sin. May I endure that sin? He says, you have nothing to part with. So you're never going to sin at this level. So this shall also not be taken over by me. Next in list sin was when he said somebody misbehaves with his friend's wife, Gurupatni or the Maharani. Nothing like it. Nothing like it. So may such sins be on me if I don't come back to you. The Brahmarakshasa was not for that also. The next was, he said, when somebody out of love marries two women and treats them both differently, that's a sin too. May I venture that? May I endure that sin? He said, nothing doing. You are never going to do all that. So this promise will not equate to what you have said now. It is not on you. Let it be on people who actually do it. You are never going to do it. So I'm not accepting this promise also. Then he says, when somebody barricades a herd of cows when they are on their way to either graze or drink water, allowing the cow to feel thirsty or hungry is a great sin. And each of the sin is more cruel than the other. So more subsequently the cruelty index is kind of increasing. He says for somebody who makes the cow feel thirsty or hungry, that's big time sin. May I get that? That's also not accepted. The 16th promise that he makes is, if somebody engages in any of the Panchama Patakas, the 5 greatest of the sins, in holy towns especially, to lie, to slaughter, to steal, to misbehave. So these are all Panchama Patakas. Especially when they are done in holy towns, sacred towns, the curses of your ancestors are all reserved for you. May I endure that suffering if I don't come back to you. Brahmarakshasa said, come on man, I know you for what purity that you carry with yourself. You have nothing but bhakti in you. There's never going to be a chance where you're going to sin at this level. So this sin, this promise of yours is not valid for your quality, and hence I'm not accepting it. 16th promise was when he said, when somebody kills a Brahmana, for the next 7 janmas of his, Brahmahatti dosha follows him. If I don't come back as per my promise to fill your tummy now, may I endure the Brahmahatti dosha. So pure by your thought, word and deed, you will never ever do that. So no, I'm not accepting this promise also. The penultimate promise that he made was, When a Sri Vaishnava worships another god but Sriman Narayana, there are some very exclusive sins that act of cruelty has reserved for. May I, if I don't come back, fall in that hell which a Vaishnava gets by praying to another god but Sriman Narayana. He said, like, no. May that sin be upon people who worship another god but Sriman Narayana. That does not come into our discussion at all. You are my dinner for tonight. Finally, the 18th and the most cruel act is pronounced by Nambaduvan. If at all I don't come back, may I venture the curse of people who consider other devatas to be at par with Sriman Narayana be on me. May I be sinned at that level that is on people who treat other devatas at par with Sriman Narayana. Being a Vaishnavite, this 18th and the most cruel promise that he made was, may I be sinned at that level if I don't come back to satisfy your hunger. The Brahma Rakshasa was shaken for a moment. He said, like, wait, this is a very, very harsh promise that you have made. Can you please repeat it out for me? So for the next 3 times, Nambaduvan recalls this promise. If I don't come back as per promise, may the sin of people who treat Sriman Narayana at par with other devatas or vice versa be upon me. May that sin be upon me. May that sin be upon me. Now listening to this, the Brahma Rakshasa was taken for a moment and he said, I'm very sure you will never ever slip this promise. This is the most strongest of the promise that you have ever made. In the long list of 18 promises you made, this for a moment moved me. Let me not bother you anymore. As the midnight approaches, the Ekadasi Tithi is still alive. Rush, get done with all your prayers. And as the third Jamam rises, as it dawns the third Jamam, which is considered the Rakshasa Jamam, run back to me to feed yourself. And Nambaduvan was actually very happy. He was happy for 2 reasons. One, his Ekadasi Vratam is anyways getting over. Secondly, he is able to feed somebody by giving himself. He is of this cadre where he has won over his interest for the bodily frame. He thinks this is unnecessary weight that he is carrying. He thinks, why should this Anma be a porter to carry this luggage? Let me shed this weight and feel the sense of freedom. Let me just be free by shedding this. And if me shedding the body is going to fulfill somebody, I have no reasons to stay back. I will obviously be very happy to offer myself. The bodily frame is anyways going to lose its integrity, fall off someday. Unattended, it is going to decay and go down. If it finds a good purpose by satisfying somebody's hunger, I am more than happy to give myself. Thanking him for permitting him to go to get done with this Ekadasi Vratam, Nambaduvan praises the Brahma Rakshasa and rushed before the Ekadasi Tithi was up. He ran there to the temple of Thirukkurungudi Alahiya Nambirayar, Sundara Paripurnar, sang to his heart's content. He said, what a beautiful night this is, that I'm going to shed my mortal coils. This weight that I've been carrying all along, I'm going to shed it. This is the night reserved for me. He was so thankful to Perumal to intervene in this long journey, to free him of the weight of his body through a Brahma Rakshasa, and on the other hand also feeding him and satisfying somebody's hunger. He was doubly happy. He sang all those ragams that he was fond of, all the ragams that he had mastered, and amidst that was this one particular raga called Kaisikam. Kaisika Pan, as it is called. Pan is this traditional Tamil music school where these select notes gives you a combination of notes, gives you a different raga. And this particular Pan is identified as Bhairavi. In today's Carnatic parlance, it's identified as Bhairavi. So this Kaisika Pan, he sang his heart out. Mahavishnu was so happy. He blessed him a lot. He chanted his names. He sang. He kept singing. Gayika he was. Nampaduvan he was. Now, as promised by Varaha Swami, nothing makes me happy as a devotee sings my name. So here you have Nambaduvan, who stood awake all through the Ekadasi night, the Jagra Vratam as it is called, who didn't drink a drop of water for the Vratam that it is, and finally sang his heart out, sang all those beautiful names of Mahavishnu and chanted his names, and Kaisika Pan was also rendered. And as it was during the previous Ekadasis, very humbly, after performing a Namaskaram, he took leave of Sundara Paripurna. He said, grant me leave, and he left the Sannidhi. And as he was walking down the streets of Thirukkurungudi, as he was just nearing the boundary of Thirukkurungudi, stepping into the woods, he was stopped by the voice of an old gentleman. And he just turned around to see that it was a ripe old Brahmana who by his appearance showed that he is a master of all the Vedas. Somebody who had had extensive anubhavam, somebody whose knowledge was immense. So Nambaduvan again very humbly prostrated in front of him, performed his namaskaram, and when he inquired who he was, he said, Nambaduvan. And the Brahmana seemed to have known about him. He was like, oh my God, you are this Nambaduvan who visits Thirukkurungudi every Ekadasi night. And he strikes a very casual conversation with him. And he says, what is hurrying you up so much? What is bothering you so much? I see you on your heels. Why are you running out of the town so fast? He said, well, not the case like how it used to be otherwise. This Ekadasi is very special to me. As I was coming into Thirukkurungudi, I was met by a Rakshasa in the middle of the forest. We had a very long heated argument, a conversation. I promised him that I will be back only to offer myself as a food. And that is when this Brahmana was reminded, well, I remember people telling me about this Brahma Rakshasa. Seems like he interrupts people who are on the in the woods all by themselves, kills them and eats them. Now avoid this route. Take a detour. Take this route. He points out to the opposite direction and he says, why not you take this route? It's a detour, but never mind. At least you will be saved. Rush this way. Nambaduvan was, I'm fully aware of what the Brahma Rakshasan is capable of. I know about him. We've had a very long conversation a little while back. I also note that this route is safer to me. But wise old man, humbly, may I tell you that I have promised him that I'll be his supper tonight. I will have to go there, so I satisfy his hunger. I've promised him and I'll have to keep up my promise. Now this old Brahmana extensively quotes from Shastras, which talks about exceptional cases where a promise can be given upon, where you can take a step back from the promises you made. He says, when your life is at threat, don't worry about the promise. When you know that this is an existential crisis, don't think about promise. When somebody is going to die, if a lie can save him or her, the lie is not accounted for. That can be taken up. When a woman's chastity is under question, when that is being threatened, there is absolutely nothing wrong in lying there. In order to get a kanyadhanam, a wedding done with, don't worry, you can actually lie. So these are all those very exceptional occasions which this old Brahmana quotes and says, now that your life is in threat, you can lie, don't worry. Just escape, take this detour, run from here. Now, Nambaduvan explains to the Brahmana, thanks him, and very humble in his tone, he says, all those are valid reasons. I don't find a reason in my case to escape being killed by the Brahma Rakshasa. Because after all, he's hungry. I've promised somebody that I'll be his food. And when that promise is kept up, I can never go above it. Now, this argument gets into more longer occasions to quote from the Shastras. And this old Brahmana keeps arguing again and again. And he says, for the betterment of a street, a house can be always given. In order to protect a village, a street can be get done with. In order to protect a country, an entire village can be tossed off. So all of these Dharma Shastra verses are all brought out. Nambaduvan kept on telling him that, may that all be the case. May the Shastra say all that. But my life is of no worth to be protected by lying. And I'm not going to lie here. After all, yet another being. May he be a Rakshasa. But I've promised him to be his food for tonight. I cannot allow him to stay hungry. So I'm going to go back and offer myself. Much after arguing at all of this, when Nambaduvan again humbly insists on taking leave and falls at his feet, the old Brahmana takes the form of none but Mahavishnu himself, who has come his way in the form of a ripe old Brahmana, interrupted him and gave him multiple choices to escape the Brahma Rakshasa as a test, and finally understood how determined Nambaduvan was. That was also a part of his vratam. Vratam is not to just stay hungry and think about the time that you can break the fast and think about the menu for that feast, and that's not how vratam happens. We give upon this lust over food. We give upon this desire for taste, and that's how you win over your senses. So here, when I have promised something, I cannot go above it. As he promised, and Mahavishnu blessed him, you being Satya Sandhan like this, all your determination, your humility, your interest in protecting dharma, and your interest in protecting the Satyam that you made even to a Brahma Rakshasa, may it energize him by the mere sight of you. The moment he sees you, may he be gotten done with his thirst and hunger, and may you bless him what he is in need for. So saying, Mahavishnu, who came down as Brahma Rakshasa, disappeared that moment. Nambaduvan, who realized that it was already late, took to his heels and ran into the forests, only to be just in time as promised to the Brahma Rakshasa. Singing the names of Krishna and Rama and Narayana, he reached out to the Brahma Rakshasa, happily offered himself. Without an iota of fear, he said, I've kept up my promise, I'm so happy. I kept you probably feeling hungry, I'm very, very sorry. I just came over, and now go ahead, however you want to, feed over me. And the Brahma Rakshasa was like, wait for a moment, you seem to be grasping for breath. Well, the moment you left me in the forest and took leave of me, please tell me all that happened after you left me here. Now Nambaduvan was like, no, why are you even asking all this? How does that bother you? You wanted me to be consumed. I'm here, please take me over. Why do you even want all this history? The Brahma Rakshasa insisted, I'm interested in knowing. Please tell me. May you be blessed. Please tell me what all happened the moment you left me. And Nambaduvan was like, yes, okay, I left you. I left from here. I ran to Thirukkurungudi. I went to the Sannadhi street. I stood outside the temple and sang to my heart's content. I chanted many, many namas of Sriman Narayana. I sang several ragas. I also sang Kaisikam. The moment he said, I had this opportunity to sing a few verses in Kaisika Pan, Brahma Rakshasa was hit right on his memories, and he was like, come again? What is it that you did? And he says, I chanted all these namas. I chanted those 1,000 namas of Mahavishnu. I chanted this ragam, I sang this ragam, and finally something propped from inside, and I sang Kaisika Pan. I sang this particular ragam. And Brahma Rakshasa was taken back for a moment. He was reminded of a promise made to him by the Devatas many, many, many yugas back. Now, at this point, the characterization of these two people switches over. In the first half of the story, Brahma Rakshasa had a control over Nambaduvan. He was threatening him. His voice was up there. He was commanding, demanding, chasing him. Nambaduvan was pleading. He was pleasing. He was pleading to him. He was so timid there. He had no voice for himself. He was quoting from Brahma Shastras, but pleading to him. Now in the second half, the characters kind of interchange, the attributes kind of interchange here. Now Brahma Rakshasa was for a moment mellowed down. And he said, now that you said that you observed this Ekadasi Vratam and you went to Nambirayar's Sannidhi and you actually sang Kaisika Pan, I have a very good offer for you. Let me just take back my words of killing you and eating you for tonight. I have a good offer for you. Let's strike a deal here. Now, can you please part with this punyam that you've earned by singing the Kaisika Pan? And in return, I promise I'll not even hurt you. My nails will not touch you. May you get back your life, but make sure you give me this punyam of the Kaisika Pan that you sang tonight in front of Nambirayar. Nambaduvan was startled here. He was like, this was not the promise that I made. This was not the contract we signed. I cannot do that. And Brahma Rakshasa was like, I don't have a choice otherwise. He's not able to tell what it was also, because he's just recalling from memory what he has been waiting for, why he is there, what he is and all that. All of this has happened yugas back. So now he was like, he started coming down one step at a time. He said, like, just think about your family. Maybe you have kids. Maybe you have your wife. Maybe you have aging parents. They would all be waiting for you. Now, this is a better deal. Why do you want to lose upon this deal? I'll give you your life. Just part with this punyam that you've earned through this Ekadasi Vratam for tonight. And Nambaduvan was like, no, I'm not doing that. Every Ekadasi is a surprise. It's a gift that I get. And if I'm going to part with it, what is there? That was not the deal that we tried. Part with me at this level. Pardon me. But please accept me. Devour me. Kill me. Eat me. But don't ask me to part with my Ekadasi Vrata Punyam. Now the Rakshasa comes one more step down and he starts pleading him. Come on. I'm just trying to cajole you. I'm giving you a better choice. I'm giving you back your life. Why not part with at least half of the punyam? I don't want it in full. Just half of the punyam. And I give you your life. You can go back. Live the rest of your life. There are going to be many, many Ekadasis for you. More Dvadasis for you. You can observe your Ekadasi Vratam in each of it. Why so particular about this one Jamam that you have observed? After all, one of those many Ekadasis that you've observed, please part with this punyam. Now Nambaduvan's voice rises. He climbs one step up there in the podium and he was like, don't play with me around. I've just got done with the Ekadasi Vratam and I'm all tired already. I've come here to uphold my promise and you're diluting it. You're distracting me here. This was not the promise that I made. And it is not Shastriyam also to change the contract deeds as and when you want. A promise made is a promise made. I'm not going to mince words here. I'm not changing it. I'm not compromising over it. I'm not parting with any of the Ekadasi Punyam that I've earned by singing in front of Nambirayar Perumal. Come eat me. That's a promise made. Now the Rakshasa comes one more step down, literally on his knees, with his hands in Anjali Mudra, prays to him. May your generations live long. May they all be blessed with a lot of prosperity. May all your progeny be getting this benefit of Ekadasi Punyams more and more. May all your ancestors bless you from wherever they are. Part with 1/4 of the punyam that you've earned. And he starts weeping there. Nambaduvan was again quite surprised and seeing his face change, the Brahmarakshasa was like, forget even 1/4. A pinch of it, as much as a sesame seed, kinchit matiramahilum, yelladavahilum, as much as a sesame seed, that's enough. Please, I request you. Saying so, he literally falls at the feet of Nambaduvan and cries his heart out. Nambaduvan is quite surprised. He was puzzled. He didn't understand what was happening. Now, one Jamam before, as the night was very young and early, this was the person who chased me all through the jungle. This was the person who made me climb those hills and escape his wrath. This was the person who was so grinding in his voice. He wanted to catch me and eat me. What has all changed in one Jamam that he is at my feet, crying? He knelt down. Now he is at my feet, literally seeking abhayam, and he is crying his heart out. This doesn't seem like anything close to even being normal. That's not exactly how a Rakshasa would ever behave. Something is not so right here. Something is not tallying up here. Curious so, he forced the Brahma Rakshasa to help him understand what is happening. You chased me for my life. You wanted to have me for tonight's dinner. You wanted to kill me. You said every limb will be of different taste, that you want to keep me for the next one fortnight till next Ekadasi, and you wanted to consume me ounce by ounce of my meat. Now, right now, you're at my feet. You're asking for the Ekadasi Vrata Punyam. You asked for all of it. You asked for half of it. You wanted me to part with at least 1/4 of it, a pinch of it. This doesn't make sense at all. Something is not tallying up. Tell me, who are you? What is your name? What's your background? Why are you here in this forest? You say you've been here for several years, waiting for somebody. What has caused all of this? In the name of Thirukkurungudi Nambiraya Perumal, I ask you, tell me only the truth. I don't want to listen to anything else. Upfront, tell me the truth. That's when the Brahma Rakshasa, after weeping a lot out, recalls from memory. In my previous birth, I was born in the community of Brahmanas as Soma Sharma. That was my name. I was so well educated. I had mastered all the Vedas, all the Shastras. And at that point, I also earned a lot of wealth. And along with the wealth, arrogance was something that I earned as a byproduct of the mastery over Vedas, of the mastery over Shastras, and all the texts and all the art forms. I had just mastered it all, and all of it didn't bring upon me the humility that should have been the end product. I ended up in being extremely arrogant. I wanted to show off in front of the celestials the kind of yagas that I can afford and I can perform. I had invited all of them for a yajnam at my palace. They had all assembled, and in the assembly of the Devatas, the celestials, I commenced with my yagam. I was so particular about seeing their face change as I chanted every mantram flawless. I was particular about them falling off for all the offerings that I made in the fire. Indra couldn't afford it, Agni couldn't afford it. This was my status. I wanted to put them all to shame. And with so much arrogance eating upon me, I commenced the yajna. As it was happening, my arrogance was struck down by that one mistake in the mantra chant that I made. One syllable got interchanged as I was chanting the mantras. I looked upon the devatas with arrogance and I gave upon recalling the mantras from memory. I slipped one mantra, short of one syllable, one matra, and that ended up me in gaining the curse of the assembly of celestials. Everyone in audience stood up for a moment and taught me a lesson. They cursed me. This mistake that you made, one syllable being slipped, one matra being slipped, may you earn the curse of becoming a Brahma Rakshasa. You thought you can feed us all with all the wealth that you have through this yajna. May you always live in hunger. May nothing that you eat fill your tummy. May you always be thirsty and hungry and go around hunting for food. May you live in the darkest of the woods, deepest of the jungles. Keep calling out, keep crying out because you're going to feel hungry always. And may this be your state from now on. Oh, they cursed me so much. Chanting even one syllable by mistake, if you make a mistake, if you err there, even for one syllable, one matra, this is how the devatas are going to curse us. And that moment, I fell at their feet. I told them I've been taught a very, very expensive lesson. I cannot imagine being a Brahma Rakshasa eternally and cry out in the woods, be a resident of jungles and go around thirsty and hungry for the rest of my time. May I please request I be forgiven. If there is any prayachittam that I can perform, if at all there is a prayachittam, please bless me up with. Because I've also learnt in the Shastras that every papam committed has its own befitting prayachittam. Oh, can you please help me with a prayachittam? Varaha Swami quotes the words of the devatas there. They said, you felt so loaded with arrogance because you had mastered all the Shastras. You felt so much arrogant that you were born in the community of Brahmanas. You felt so arrogant that your wealth was immeasurable. These were the three reasons that you felt that fed you with a lot of arrogance. Your birth, your wealth, and your knowledge. May you wait till such times that somebody who is so low in all of these three reach out to you. But somebody who is much more seasoned than you, he was not born of a caste like yours. He is from a very, very subdued, in fact an outcast. He was not wealthy like you. He had nothing for himself, but he felt so contented. May you wait till such times that you actually meet somebody who had no access to the Vedas or the Shastras, but he had a wealth called Sangeetam, the Geetam only to satisfy Perumal. Though he was born in the community of bards, he will never make a living out of singing common man and mortal beings. His austerities, his vratam, his sankalpam will be only to sing the praise of Sriman Narayana. May you wait till such times that you meet somebody of this cadre. Somebody who was an outcast, somebody who was extremely poor, somebody who had no knowledge about the Vedas, but his bhakti was so pure that all that he spoke were the names of Mahavishnu. All that he did was puja to Mahavishnu. Every act of his was considered as punyam to be offered to Mahavishnu. May you wait in the woods, may you wait in the jungle, may you keep roaming, crying out for food and water till such times that you meet a bhakta so seasoned, so pure. Convince him to part with a particule of the punyam that he has earned by observing his Ekadasi vratam. Wait till such times. And when I asked them, when is this going to happen? They said, wait for centuries, till such times that you reach the foothills of Mahendragiri Parvatam, where the river called Sindhu River flows from. And that auspicious hour of Kartikai Masam, Sukla Paksham, Ekadasi Titi, as it gets over and Dwadasi is going to be born, the most auspicious moment when your Ekadasi Vratapunyam is received, at that point, he will part with a minuscule of the Ekadasi Vratapunyam that he has gained by singing his heart out, especially through the Kaisika pun. If you are able to cajole him, if you are able to convince him to part with it, that shall be your Saba Vimochanam. So saying the Devatas left to their abodes, I have been living here, God knows how long. I don't keep time of the calendar years have passed. I've been waiting for you for eons now. Today, some punyam somewhere that I have earned gave me an opportunity to have darshan of you. You, this most seasoned soul, whose praise are known by the Devatas themselves, somebody who was born of a socially deprived caste, but somebody whose approach to Perumal was much more than anybody who was a Brahmana. Somebody who was so poor, but extremely wealthy because you have earned a lot of punyam by chanting his nama. Somebody who has learnt nothing but his own namas, which is the quintessence of all the Vedas and Shastra that I've earned. I who had commented upon the Shastras, I who have learnt it all by heart, slipped the moment arrogant nature that took over me. You who are so humble in your approach, who knows nothing but Mahavishnu, you are here who have observed the Ekadasi Vratam. I request you, if there is a way for me to get rid of this Brahmarakshasa Swarupam and attain moksha, it is only by you feeling convinced to part with a minuscule of the punyam. Nambaduvan, not to be said, was moved by this request of the Brahmarakshasa, and he was more than happy to part with a fourth of the punyam that he had gained by singing the Kaisika pun at the shrines of Thirukkurungudi Alagiya Nambirayar. And Brahmarakshasa, for that moment, as he declared it, handed over him the punyam, he got rid of the Brahmarakshasa Vadivam that was so heavy on him that he has been carrying upon all along. Apart from just getting rid of the Sapam, he also attained moksham. And Perumal made sure, Nambirayar made sure, that Bhagavata, Nambaduvan, and the Brahmarakshasa, both of them attained moksha on that auspicious night. The Ekadasi Vratapunyam of somebody else can gain moksham to somebody who falls at his feet. That being said, nothing like music that moves me is what Varaha Swami told. Now, for that word of his to Bhuma Devi, where he said, Aham smarami madbhaktam, at their closing moments, if their senses fail them, I will think about them. And in fact, that's reflected in many verses of the Alvars. Periyalvar very beautifully says, Thuppudayarai adaivadellam, Sorvidattu Tunayavarennu, Oppilen Ahilum Ninnadaindhen, Anaikku nee arul seidamayal. He says, when I am all fit by myself, I think I am carrying myself. I think it is me who is strong. I think the word I is playing all this. Sorvidattu Tunayavarenre. I think so till such times that when all my bodily support fails, I cripple, I crumble down, and when I fall, that is when it strikes upon me. I am not worthy of protecting myself. There is no I in this business. So, knowing what happens in those moments, I have fallen at your feet now. I had a thought whether I am really worthy of even falling at your feet. But knowing that you were the one who blessed Gajendra, when you could do that for an elephant, I thought I am worthy of taking your refuge, being your refuge too, being at your feet. Anaikku nee arul seidamayal. Annikku and yaanaikku nee anugraham panninalla. Adanala naanum pannalaanu nambaren. Oru yaanaike panninar. Enakku panna maataraanu naan nenikkren. Thuppudayarai adaivadellam sorvidattu thunai aavarendru. சோர்ந்து விழும்போது யார் துணையா வர முடியும்னு யோசித்த போது ஒப்பிலேன் ஆகிலும் நின்னடைந்தேன். உன்னுடைய திருவடி வர்ற அளவுக்கு எனக்கு யோக்கியதை இல்லைனாலும் ஆனைக்கு நீ அருள் செய்தமையால், யானைக்கு அனுகிரகம் பண்ணியே, அதனால் நான் உன் திருவடியில் விழறேன். எய்ப்பெண்ணை நலியும் போது அங்கேதும் நான் உன்னை நினைக்க மாட்டேன். When old age strikes upon me and when my own senses, which has been eating my time and myself, fails me, I'm not sure if I'll be able to think about you. எய்ப்பு என்னை நலியும் போது அங்கேதும் நான் உன்னை நினைக்க மாட்டேன். I'm sure I will not be thinking about you. As worldly beings, those are the moments when we'll be thinking about the wealth that we earned. You'll be wondering what happened to those papers where you have signed your purchase note and all of that. You'll be worried about the bank account which you have not shared the password of with your son. You'll be thinking whether all your children are around you. You'll be thinking about those great moments that you had with your wife. These are the memories that strikes me. எய்ப்பெண்ணை வந்து நலியும் போது அங்கேதும் நான் உன்னை நினைக்க மாட்டேன். So you know what I'm going to do now? அப்போதைக்கு இப்போதே சொல்லி வைத்தேன் அரங்கத் தரவினனை பள்ளியானே. May I not wait till such times that my memory fails me, that my senses fails me, that my bodily strength, of which I am so proud about right now, fails me. So for that moment, may I take this opportunity when everything is strong, when I'm still, sensed, with my senses intact, let me offer myself at your feet. அப்போதைக்கு இப்போதே சொல்லி வைத்தேன். May I not fool myself to wait till such moments when I'm strong and stale. Let me tell you, I'm at your feet. Please remember me when my time is right. He says, அப்போதைக்கு இப்போதே சொல்லி வைத்தேன் அரங்கத் தரவினனை பள்ளியானே. This is the approach that the Alvars had. So as Varaha Swami promised, aham smarami madbhaktam, I will recall them. I'll keep them in my mind. So saying, Varaha Perumal told this entire story as he was rescuing Bhuma Devi from the deep oceans. And this promise of his, elucidated by this story of Nampaduvan in what is called as Kaisika Puranam, which is a part of Varaha Mahapuranam, the Acharyas, the Vaishnava Acharyas consider as the greatest of all the promises that Mahavishnu ever made. Unlike the Rama Avatara or Krishna Avatara words, the recipient here was Sri Bhudevi, his own consort. The teacher was Sriman Narayana and the student, the recipient was Bhuma Devi. When both of them take care of us, so they cannot fool around at that level. Because in other cases, as I told you, it was Rama, though the one who promised was Rama, the one who received was after all a Rakshasa, who might not even know the weight of it. And here in this case, though it was Krishna himself, Arjuna never for a moment thought, even after getting the Vishwarupa Darisanam, Arjuna was not ready to take up Krishna's feet as his refuge. And Krishna, this moment, untie me of all the cards. I don't want any of this. I don't want to win over Indraprastham. I don't want Hastinapuram. Accept me at your feet. Grant me moksham. This is what probably Krishna expected. But Arjuna, no. He was not seasoned for it. So let's give up on Rama Charama Slokam and Krishna Charama Slokam. It is Varaha Charama Slokam which we'll have to take care of. It is that Charama Slokam which you should recall every day, because the promise was made by Mahavishnu himself, received by Bhuma Devi. And so saying, this Thirukkurungudi Nambirayar and the way he blessed a Nambaduvan to a Brahma Rakshasa, through which he has helped bhaktas understand that the caste in which you're born, the wealth that you've earned, or all the learning that you have is not even a tool that's going to come to rescue you in those moments. It is the simple, pure bhakti, expecting nothing in return, keeping up the promise because Bhagavan himself is Satya, even if it compromises with your own life. Because you have promised, coming forward to happily offer it, is what Mahavishnu is looking for. And this Varaha Puranam's chapters, which are called as Kaisika Mahapuranam, has been scripted into a beautiful Tamil theatre around the 17th century, because the dialogue seems like, the Tamil usage is like what it is in the 17th century when theatre was very, very popular. Called as Kaisika Puranam, this has been authored, and at this temple called Thirukkurungudi, which is near Tirunelveli, as I told you, it is enacted every year during the nights of Kaisika Ekadasi. Every year, as Kaisika Ekadasi night happens, at around 7 or 8 in the night, a 4 or 5 hour theatre has been authored to be performed by the temple Devadasis back then. It is an all-women theatre. An all-women theatre wherein all the roles, primarily there are only 3 characters. One is Nambaduvan, the singer, the other is Brahma Rakshasa, and the third is this wise old man who is Nambir Perumal himself, who came in the disguise of this wise Brahmana. But in order to make it into a theatre to appeal to common public, they have brought in Avataram in between, and so it's a nice big theatre, 4-5 hour duration, has been authored and it has been enacted by the Devadasis, an all-women theatre, where the role of the Brahma Rakshasa alone is done by a male member. And this script was active until the abolishment of Devadasis in late 1950s, after which this beautiful theatre, the primary use of it is to make people stay awake that night, because Ekadasi night is Jagra Vratam. Quite a good possibility that we might fall asleep if you're going to sit all by yourself and just keep chanting the Nama. Just in case, to make it more easy for us to stay awake through the night, they've had this idea where it starts at around 9 or 10 in the night and goes on till early in the morning, 2:33 in the morning. So people stay awake. It's nice entertainment. There is fun there. There is drama elements there. But underlying is the core philosophy of Kaisika Ekadasi. Unfortunately, it lost its sheen after the abolishment of Devadasi's Act, and it was lost for good then. And in late 1990s, when Dr. Anitha Ratnam, the world famous dancer, theatre person, Natya Guru, choreographer and more, whose native is Thirukkurungudi in fact, learnt about it, went there, worked on an immense project which she took it upon herself to put everything into place, recall from the memories of people in their 80s and 90s as to what they saw as little kids back then, to recreate the entire theatre with the costumes and props and music and everything, cut it short because people don't have patience for like 6 hours theatre and all anymore, into a 4-hour theatre, and started presenting it in the late 90s. It starts with, like any other theatre, it starts with the Patra Pravesam of Nambaduvan, who comes in singing the praise of Perumal, and then you have the Patra Pravesam of the Brahma Rakshasa. So the music and everything is befitting the characters. So Brahma Rakshasa comes out and they chase, and he catches hold of catches hold of Nambaduvan, and they have this long conversation where Nambaduvan makes those 18 promises. Finally, he takes leave. The best part is the temple's architecture actually has a scope to perform this theatre with an exclusive mandapam called as Kaisika Mandapam, built with 2 stages in the 2 ends of the mandapam. One stage to the east is where the performance happens, where the drama actually happens. 200 feet from there, right opposite, the other end of the mandapam, is another stage which is reserved for the most important person in audience, who is none but Nambi Perumal himself. The Utsava Murti of Nambirayar Perumal actually comes and sits in audience, and this is performed right in front of him. So for the performers, when they actually perform, you will have Perumal standing right there. So when this part of the drama where Nambaduvan goes to the temple comes, the person who plays the role of Nambaduvan actually walks down the stage, cuts across the audience, and goes to that end of the mandapam where you have Perumal. And there she sings Kaisika Pan, which is Bhairavi Ragam. And this is almost like the intermission for the drama. So that is where it is filled with, where the artist gets some rest, which is filled with the Dashavataram exposition. So each of the Avataram is performed. You have a narrator there who, as I discussed in the starting of the lecture, who says that Matsya Avataram is of no use to us. Kurma Avataram for this reason is of no use to us. Vamana Avataram is not good for us. Narsimha Avataram will not be useful to us. So each of the Avataram is enacted elaborately through music with minimum props, a beautiful theatre conceptualization. And one Sutradhari comes there and says, this is the status of this Avataram, let's come over it, this is not of use to us. So each of the Avataram is checked off the list, and finally, elaborately, Varaha Avataram is performed, and there he says, it is the words of Varaha Swami which we should take seriously. So this comes as this intermission for the artist for like 30-40 minutes in between. Now then, he comes back again. So Nambaduvan comes back to the stage after his prayers to Nambi Perumal, and the second half of the drama unfolds there. And finally, when the Sabha Vimochanam is given, the person who plays the role of Brahma Rakshasa removes this headgear which he wears. He is in all black dress and very threatening face makeup, face painting and all. And he wears a black color headgear which has overflowing hair and all that. So it gives a gory look. So that crown is removed as a sign of Sabha Vimochanam. And the entire theatre walks towards Perumal accompanied by music. And they have an exclusive darshanam of Nambirayar Perumal and given Tirtham and Shadari and Prasadam and more. So this has been recreated and it has been performed. I should say, by the blessings of all the acharyas with whom I've had very minimum connection, and by the blessings of my ancestors, 3-4 generations before which the women members especially were Devadasis in our own village temple, in the last 5-6 years, I've had this opportunity to perform the role of Brahma Rakshasa and been granted with moksham every year at Thirukkurungudi. So thanks to Dr. Anitha Ratnam who has given me this opportunity. I'm not a theatre person, I don't know music, I don't know dance, but this was the best of the gifts I've received from Perumal. So we performed this drama, and we take a lot of rehearsals like any other theatre, all of it is there. We do a couple of dress rehearsals the day before and all. We perform in other temples in and around there. You have the Navatirupati around Tirunelveli and Vanamamalai and such ancient Vaishnava Dividesams where they invite the theatre to be performed a day or two before Ekadasi. So that's like a dress rehearsal for us. We learn more, and all the mistakes are done there and we correct it. But this particular final presentation for the year at the stage in front of Nambi Perumal is completely different. We don't wait for somebody to prompt dialogues that we have forgotten. It just goes in a flow. And finally, we break down and performing for the audience, or taking a look at their approval or acknowledgement, or checking on the audience if they are applauding, or there's a smile in their face, and nothing comes in our way in between. That's a personal experience, I should say. And the experience lasts for a couple of hours over the night. The last 5 or 6 years I've been performing, that night after the prasadam and all that, I somehow get this dhairyam to get into the darkest of the corridors in the temple and cry my heart out. While I'm a person who is very scared of dark spaces, this is one thing that I've been noticed, and that I consider as my annual blessing every year, time and again. And so Varaha Puranam's part, though, Kaisika Puranam is, that becomes the most significant part of Varaha Puranam. So significant that Sri Parashara Bhattar, this prominent Acharya in the Vaishnava Acharya lineage, has commented elaborately on it. That's how special it is. So, thankful to Swamiji that one evening during a casual conversation with him, when I told him, Swami, this is what I'm doing, this is how the story develops, he was very particular that it should be shared with the Sishyas. This particular very auspicious historic day was not decided then, but as it happens, Varaha Swami's decision, so it was. And I recall Swamiji telling that Varaha Swami is of his personal interest also. He says, I love Varaha Perumal. So he wanted this Varaha Charama Slokam and Kaisika Puranam, which is an elaboration of it, to be shared as a personal experience. If there were any, this was an extempore, I was not prepared for it. If there were any mistakes committed, grammatical, factual, I seek apology. It's because of my own karma. If it was enjoyable, all due praises to my Acharya, Dharmapuram Adinam, and to Sri Tyagaraja Swami of Thiruvarur. May the Simhasanadhipati bless us all. And may there be peace, happiness and health. Murthy Ellam Vali, Engal Mono Guru Vali, Arul Varthai Endrum Vali, Anbar Vali Paravarame. Ellam Sri Tyagaraja Kripai, Sri Tyagaraja Maharajo Vijayate. Arura Tyagesa. Nandri Vanakkam.